Okay, good morning and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Yevamos daf pay number 80. Today we're discussing the nature of a stress chama, basically someone who is born with the inability to have children, to father children. Naturally, he had a problem. His mother drank too much liquor when she was pregnant. The Gemara says so. He became a stress chama. There's a questionable, interesting Gemara over here on Pam and Aleph. The Gemara says. There's a couple different machlokas. Where it says Achal Chaylev towards the bottom, Ben Shtemes Rabbi Yomechad, Ben Shmonas Rabbi Nolda Bosim on Estris, Lachar Mikan Hevi Shtei Saros. From 12 to 18, during that 12 to 18 year period, we're seemingly talking about a man because it calls it a stris. An islandess is the female version. He eats Chaylev from that 12 to 18 year period. So what's the halacha? Is he chayav to bring a chatas or not? A katan doesn't have to bring a chatas, but a gadol would. You only become a gadol once you turn 18, and we determine you're a stress, and then you become a gadol. So you become a stress l'mafreya. We assume once we now find out you're a stress, you have the simanim of a stress, so you become l'mafreya retroactively at the age of 12, seemingly what the Gemara says. You become a stress, a gadol, or a gadol at 12 years old one day. Shmuel Amar Katan Ayavos Hashash. Shmuel says we don't do it retroactively. Now he's a stress. Before he was a katan. Until 18 he was a katan. Now, what's interesting about this Gemara is that, first of all, we're talking about 12 years. Eating chaylev after 12 years only works for a girl. A girl reaches maturity, she's bat mitzvah at 12. A boy is 13, so it's we're talking about a girl. But then the Gemara calls it a stris. Second problem with the Gemara is we're talking about 18. The Gemara paskin before by a boy, it's 20 years old is a stris. That's when you establish him as a stris. Oh, I'd like to suggest, yes, it's talking about a boy. But a stris... it's talking about a boy, but when someone's a psua dacha krushafa and a stris chama, according to the psak halacha that we established, like he's naturally born a stris, he'd have the same thing of psua dacha krushafa. He's not allowed to marry to the Kal Hashem. He's not allowed to marry a fully Jew, someone part of the congregation, a full Jewish woman, because he lacks the kedushas Yisrael, because he can't reproduce and become a mitzvah purvu. That's the svara, I think, of Psudaka Krashaf. I can't reproduce. So therefore, he's not allowed to marry the Kal Hashem. He lacks, not being part of the Kal Hashem, he lacks part of the Kedushas Yisrael. We mentioned there's only Kedushas Yisrael by a man. So if he's a Sris, he loses the Kedushas Yisrael, which basically renders him a woman. Once he finds out he's a Sris and he can't reproduce, he's not any different from a woman. So therefore, when we find out at 18 years old that he can't have children, that he's a Sris, he becomes retroactively, according to Rav, like a woman, and therefore, even at 12 years old, if he ate chaylev, he'd be chayav to bring a korban for that. That's why it says 12 years old one day, because effectively he's rendered a stris and an island, so both rendered a female, and they're gedola at 12 years old in one day. Why is it 18 years old over here? Even though the halacha would normally check the stris, the Gemara seems to say on Peyam base at 20 years old, because the age, the Gemara says in Pirkei Avos, the Gemara says, Ben Shmonas Reil Chopa. So the time we check when he can reproduce or not, one of the main focuses of getting married is to reproduce the kind of mitzvah of pruvu. That's the time we're looking into it. That's the time we're judging it. So we wanted to assess it. He's a stress at 18 years old. So even though a stress really, technically, is only 20 years old, he's a suffix stress. He's not a full stress. He's a suffix stress. And it's mitzvah tali v'koi until if he develops shtei saros, 2 pubic hairs before the 20th birthday, I think everyone would agree that he would be considered a gadol. Even Shmuel would agree he's considered a gadol. And if he ate from 13, then it would be from 30. The din would change. If he ate chaylev from 13 years old, then the mafreya would say he's a gadol, because you wait till 20. But here we're judging at the time he's getting married. He's getting married at 18 years old. So he's a suffix stress. Therefore, we have to assume he might be a woman. He might be a woman. So therefore, he's chayav chatas. And it's not just really a suffix. Like the suffix is why you don't bring a chatas, you're not mechuyev to the azara. In Ravina Chula azara, it's more than a suffix. It's a chazaka. Normally, people bring 2 pubic hairs, develop 2 pubic hairs before the age of 18. It's very uncommon. It's a miyach and a matzah, so we can assume it's chazaka that he's a stress. Now, once he reaches 20 years old, the Gemara says. So this is the Gemara in Peyam and Beis. The Gemara says that if he's 20 years old and he has no pubic hair, so then he's a vadai stress. But it's still a chazaka, right? Because the Gemara says that if after 20 years old he develops 2 pubic hairs, so then in some regards he's not a stress anymore. Like the Gemara says, this is an afkamina for the Machlokas Rav Huna and Rabbi Yochanan at the end of Peyam and Beis, where they talk about how many simonim. The Brisa mentions like 6 or 7 simonim for a stris. Do you need all of them to terminate a stress, or one of them? So the Gemara says the machlokas within Rabbi Huna and Rabbi Yochanan is only talking about where he didn't develop 2 pubic hairs after 20 years old. But if he did develop 2 pubic hairs after the age of 20 years old, so therefore everyone agrees he needs all the simanim of a stress to disprove, because he basically has a chazaka. Once you reach 20 years old, it's a very strong chazaka that this person, we can't say definitively, because we can't know for sure if the person, he might develop pubic hairs, and technically once you develop pubic hairs, you're a gadol and you're a man. Retroactively, I don't know if we'd say that. But retroactively, after 20 years old, we probably wouldn't say that. Only after 18 years old, we say it retroactively. That's why the Gemara is only after 18 years old, because it's less of a chazaka. We'll have to when we come to different masechtas, to develop a thesis about what types of chazakas. There are different types of chazakas, different ways of relying on probabilities. He has more of a chazaka after 20 years old, but he's not completely, because you could disprove it. Because if he has all the simonim, right, his semen is watery, and his urine doesn't form an arch, and his urine doesn't have foam and doesn't ferment. So then you have all the simonim, like the Brisa says. So then you could disprove it, right? It's not a va'adai if you develop 2 pubic hairs, because the stris can overrule it, can overturn the chazaka. Mosi mechaber al varaya. You want to destroy the chazaka, you need all of them. The Gemara says to develop all of them. You need all of them to overturn that chazaka. But that's the difference. 18 years old, I think you would not need all of them. You would need, basically, paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, afilu be'echad mehen. Even one of them, even if he develops, even one of them, if 18 years, 18 years, and he has 2 pubic hairs, he doesn't have he's 20 years old and doesn't have any pubic hairs, even one of them would render him a stris. One of the characteristics would render him a stris. If he has 2 pubic hairs, you have to overturn it. The overturn is a stronger chazaka at 20 than 18. 18 is the time we have to judge it, because he's roy for Leda now. He's getting married at 18 years old. You have to discern whether there's a chazaka of one level, and then there's a chazaka, a stronger chazaka at 20 years old without pubic hairs. It can be overturned if he develops 2 pubic hairs at 21st birthday, let's say, and he doesn't have all the simanim, and he's going to need all the simanim of a stress to overturn. Otherwise, we'd assume he's a gadol, and he became a gadol at 13 years old. He's a regular man. It's the Iglai Muslim affair. I think Rav and Shmuel would both agree that at the age of 13 he becomes a full-fledged man, Lushis Yisrael, and only if he ate chaylev from that point of 13 would have to bring a chatas. I hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you tomorrow.